Hello everybody, welcome to the channel. I thought it was time to show you my completed coloring book collection. I'm going to start off with one of my favorite artists to color, and that's KARLA MAGANA. I think this video is going to cover only her books because I did quite a few pages of her. She was an artist I discovered on YouTube when I was starting to color, and that was 3 years ago. Most of the months I color a KARLA MAGANA page. So yeah, I will clean up my desk and we will get started. The first book I bought of her was Star the Space Lost by KARLA MAGANA, and I finished this book. So I had like 3 coloring books. I was experimenting with a lot of media. Yeah, I just finished this book because I liked every page in it. So most of the time I use alcohol markers, Jelly Roll Moonlight, black fine liners, some white Posca, glitter. If I'm using anything else, I will mention it when I am showing the picture. So these were pages in March 2021, and I started coloring in February 2021. So these were, yeah, my first coloring pages ever. So I tried to use some bold color palettes. This was in April 2021, and here I was trying to work with a little set of Neocolor 2s on the Amazon paper. Then I wasn't aware with good quality paper, Amazon paper. KARLA MAGANA only has her books printed out on Amazon paper, but because I am not using coloring pencils or anything in it, I cannot be bothered. For alcohol markers, it's perfect. So yeah, I did quite a lot of pages in that period. So these were quite simple for me. You will see the difference when we're going through a time. And I have a lot of PDFs I printed out from her as well, but I'm just going to show you the pages I did in her books, because otherwise we will be here until 2025. She tried to experiment it in the beginning with some ugly color palettes. So a lot of color palettes were just picking randomly. So I closed my eyes and I picked 5 or I don't know, 6 alcohol markers, and I tried to make it work. I think it's very freeing to just color and not thinking about the colors and not thinking about making it too perfectly. I added some shapes in the background as well. It's because of her coloring channel I was experimenting. Now she is moving a lot of her stuff in a separate room, and she isn't making any YouTube videos lately. And I see that I don't gravitating towards her books when I don't see her coloring in her books on her YouTube channel. It's very strange. This was a challenge to take a food packaging and take some inspiration of that one. So this was from a box to make hot chocolate, and I will put a picture on the left side so you can see what I mean. So this was a fun challenge. Her girls are very quirky, but that's actually what I like about her style. You cannot color it realistically. It doesn't lean towards that style. So she just advises you to, yeah, experiment and try something out. I I think in the beginning of my coloring journey, I was a lot more freely than I am now. I always want to try something else, but at a certain moment you lose your inspiration and you're doing what you're used to. In the beginning it was all new and exciting, so yeah. This was a color challenge with the pastel colors, I think. This was a coloring challenge. So she has a Facebook group hosted by Kate's Coloring Haven. She is the administrator of the Facebook group, and it was a challenge to use as much opposites as you can. So I divided the page in two. I used greens and reds, so they are complementary colors. I used silver and gold, and yeah, that's it, and black and white. So really like this one. I have a lot of coloring pages of her. It's unbelievable. I don't have all her books because I think she has like over 10 books, and I just want to color what I have. New color tools again to try out. Because when I have too many books, I cannot choose which one to color. So I rather keep the books I have and try to make the best of it than buying too many books. It gives me a lot of stress to have too many books. So in the beginning I bought a lot of coloring books because I didn't know what style I liked. And I have to be honest, a lot of books I started in the beginning, I gave them away or I threw them away because I knew I wasn't going to color in it anymore, and I don't want it to be, to take up a lot of space in our house, so I threw them away. So the books I have, I like. I still make some mistakes when I am purchasing books, but yeah. This was an alcohol base, and I used a colorless blender to make some circles in the background. It was just some experimenting. And this is the tester page. Okay, so this was my first book, Stardust Space Lost. This is in no particular order, I just took them from the shelf. This is Booklets Volume 1. I did quite a lot of pages in it. This was also based on a food packaging. These were some cookies, American cookies. This was for Halloween. I added a whole background border around it. This was for Halloween as well. And this was a color challenge of Doodle Robot to only use black for coloring. So I tried to do a lot of shading. I added a spider and I added Halloween in it. I used some hatching for the shadowing. Very, very fun. This background was done with soft gel crayons. It was something different. I added a little background around this page as well. I think it was for a pastel challenge again. Here I was using a gray alcohol marker for shading. I saw it on EDC Art Attacks, one of his lives, and I wanted to try it out. I tried some blending, but I'm not very good in blending my alcohol markers. It are some cheap markers from the Action store, so yeah, they are not very blendable in my opinion, but I'm not an expert in it, so yeah, maybe I'm doing something wrong. Here I added some extra line work in the background. This one was done with alcohol marker as a base for the background, and then some Neocolor 2s or some Derwent for the blotchy effect. Here I added an outlining around the main image, and I did a little bit of a background. That's it in this book, okay? So this was my second book, Spooklets Volume 1 by KARLA MAGANA. This is a recent one, Retro Deco. I like this book, I really like it. Spooklets is one of my favorites as well. I'm going to do a little bit of a flip through that you see the images. So this one was very fun. I like the composition of this book. It's one of her older books. I am actually more gravitating toward her older books than her newer books. Because you see, this is hand-drawn. All the rest she did with a tablet because of her wrist. But you see the lines are a little bit more wobbly. And yeah, I like that. This was again with an alcohol marker in the background, and I think this was oil pastels to give it a little bit of a gradient. This was all with neon. Yes, this was all with neon alcohol markers. I was testing out a new set of Winsor & Newton alcohol markers I bought. The nib isn't that great, it's very hard. The rest of the Winsor & Newton alcohol markers are great, but the fluorescent ones are a little bit different. So these were the completed pages in Retro Deco. Then I have one of her newer books, Cosmetica. I'm going to do a little flip through so you see what is the difference. So these lines are a lot more, how do you see it? More straight. You see that it is digitally drawn. It's all hand drawn, but on her tablet. So this is a page I used some coloring pencils. I don't like the process of coloring pencils on Amazon paper, so this is one of the few ones I did. This was a disaster, the background. I think the background was done with inks from the Action store, but I got like a very blotchy effect, so I did it everywhere like it was on purpose. This was just an army background with alcohol markers. I was just trying to blend, but it wasn't working, so I scribbled some alcohol markers. So it was like I did it on purpose. If you make some mistakes, just mask them and pretend like you was doing it on purpose. This is one of my favorite coloring pages I ever did of her. I don't know why. Maybe it's the color choice, maybe it's the image. I really like this one. And that's it. So this was Cosmetica by KARLA MAGANA. Then I have Dark Garden. It's one of her first colorings books. I have to be in the mood for this one because it is a lot of small detailing and yeah. Oh my god, my book is sticking together. So this is a very thin line art. It's like something totally different of hers. So one of her first books, I did this one. I added a frame around her to give it a little bit more a fill up in the background. This is a book with some toxic plants in it. And this was a body color. I used some Derwent Inktense on this page, but I'm not a big fan of it. It's fine, it's fine. This is for experimenting, guys. It's just something to brighten up your day when you have a very tough and hard week. This is just to put some color on the paper. So this is Dark Garden coloring book. Then I have Deco Dolls. I did quite a few in here as well. So this was a color challenge. This was the color red. This was the color orange. I didn't do every color. I'm not a big fan of monochromatic color palettes. I like this one as well. This one is also one of my favorites I've done of hers. I don't know why, but I like the colors. Yeah, very fun. Just some scribbling when your background and your marker is just dying. Just use it and scribble. This background was done with some metallic watercolor paint. It was a disaster. I hate it, but I finished it. It's done. It's very shiny, but the paper wasn't working. This one is a nice one as well. This is metallic paint in the background, but I think it was 4 layers. It wasn't covering on this paper. It was a disaster, but it's fun. If you haven't checked out her YouTube channel of KARLA MAGANA, she is a required taste, so she just says what she is thinking. This is one of my favorites as well. She's very down to earth. She is a one-woman show, and I really appreciate, this was yellow, how she is thinking and how she is doing it for herself. And yeah, I like her personality as well. Her color and chats, very inspiring. So Deco Dolls, KARLA MAGANA. Then I have Tropy Goth of her. This is the book I like the least because you have a lot of foliage in the background and it are a lot of leaves. And it limits my creative outlet to do a background of my own. So I'm not very creative in this book, so that's the reason why I am not a big fan of this. This one I like. This is one okay. This one is my favorite of all times. The background is done with Neocolor 2s. Really like this one. Like this is leaves and bushes, and you have it like in every page. I did some pages in it, but I'm not a... This is my least favorite page. What doesn't mean I am not liking the book, but you have a little bit less of an artistic freedom in it. I think I am doing this one in order. No, I'm not. Christina's Art Corner is doing a monthly page in this book, so you can follow the hashtag if you want. This was for her. I really like this one as well. But I don't think I did any more pages. Oh yes, one page. I like this one as well. Okay, so those were my completed pages in Tropy Goth by KARLA MAGANA. And then the last book I have is Aesthetica Synthetica, and this is one I finished as well. I finished this book in 30 days. Why? This is like a sketchbook, a little bit smaller, and I gave myself the challenge to color one page every day, and the time I'm coloring a page was a maximum of 30 minutes. So I was just experimenting with lines, I was experimenting with colors. It was very fun. So like you see, it isn't rocket science on these pages, but I really liked it. So she has a couple of sketchbooks as well. So if you don't want a lot of details, you can perfectly choose a sketchbook like this and just put some color on the paper. I don't like her face, this disaster, but it's fine. This was for the color green, I think. I just took a color palette, 5 or 6 alcohol markers, and I just went for it. If it was ugly or not, I didn't mind. Sometimes I just picked 5 or 6 random alcohol markers and I just tried to make it work. Sometimes it was colors that worked together and sometimes it didn't. For this page I have a video of it, with some tips on how to get loose with these pages, so it's on my YouTube as well. I also have a video on how I color a KARLA MAGANA page, how I started, what my thinking process is, or why I am not thinking about the process. So if you are interested in that, it's on my channel as well. This was for the color blue. Here was I trying to blend a little bit, but yeah, it wasn't a success. Blending with alcohol markers, it's very hard. Especially on this paper. This was actually okay, the blending with the hair. It wasn't the easiest combination, but it worked. I hadn't time in the 30 minutes to do a whole background, so mostly I just outlined it with a little bit of color. And the results are very cute. This was all done in February 2023. Okay, so these were my KARLA MAGANA books. So this was the first part of my coloring book collection. For the rest of the coloring books, I'm just doing them how they are standing on my shelf. Nothing fancy. I'm going to collect all my Hannah Carlson books together, all my Rita Berman books together. But if I'm totally honest, I don't have a lot of illustrators. I have more than one coloring book. The only ones are Kirby Rosanna's, Rita Berman and Hannah Carlson, and KARLA MAGANA. All the rest are just one book of each illustrator. So we will see how we will going to do that. So yeah, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up so other people can find this video as well. And I will see you in part 2. Bye.